In this video, we are going to be looking at 3 documented time slips that have mind-blown people for some years. A time slip is when a person, or sometimes a group of people, innocently travel backwards or forwards in time via an unknown mean, and usually for a short period of time. Some believe this to be possible, whilst others are more skeptical. Why don't you view the 3 events we've picked out for you today, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. Number 3, in 1991, a 63-year-old farmer from the agricultural region of Bacău, Romania, named Vasile Gorgos, said goodbye to his family one day as he headed off for a day or two on livestock trading business. This was a common occurrence for Vasile, as he often traveled around Romania, buying and selling animals. Having traded livestock for many years, Vasile's family waved him goodbye and thought nothing more of it. After a couple of days, Vasile did not return, and his family had received no communication from him to suggest he may be staying away for a bit longer. Another day or two passed without word, and the Gorgos family began to worry about why Vasile had taken an unexpected and extended trip without contacting them. As the days continued to go by, the family began to give up hope, and eventually came to the conclusion that Vasile had either left his family for unknown reasons, or sadly was no longer alive. An extensive operation was undertaken by authorities to locate Vasile, but it proved fruitless, and a memorial was held in Vasile's honor. The mystery of his disappearance remained unsolved for decades. Then, in a bizarre plot twist, 30 years later, in August 2021, a vehicle could be seen driving towards the Gorgos household, and so the family went outside to greet whoever it was. An old man stepped out of the passenger side of the car. It was Vasile Gorgos, wearing the same clothes that he had departed in when he left in 1991. Before the Gorgos family could see who was driving the vehicle or catch the registration plate, the car made a swift exit without any introduction. Vasile had a train ticket in his pocket dated the day he left in 1991, along with his identification. The whole situation begged many questions that required answers, but Vasile had no memory of the last 30 years and claims to have been at his residence the whole time. The family assumed this to be some sort of sick joke or a hoax, but it was a 93-year-old original Vasile Gorgos, utterly confusing everybody. Vasile's memory was in working order, relaying stories about his home and family, and many other details that only the real Vasile could have known. It was only the last 30 that had elapsed that was missing from his mind. The Gorgos family attempted to track Vasile's footsteps over the years, only to find nothing but dead ends, and despite being 93 years old, Vasile's health was reported to be exceptional. Could Vasile have time slipped, or did he simply leave home for a fresh start elsewhere, then returned alleging memory loss when the guilt became overwhelming? Let me know what you think in the comments. Number 2, Glenn Johnson of Duncan, Oklahoma, was driving approximately 9 miles away from his home one day in 2007 when he experienced bad weather and lightning strikes. He wanted to get home as quickly as he could, but the weather made motoring conditions rather tough. Whilst driving, Glenn noticed that the road consisted of old gravel and was not a road he had been down before, so deduced that he had taken a wrong turn due to the difficult weather. Nevertheless, decided to continue, as he was only 10 minutes from home, and figured that the must lead to somewhere close by, given his direction of travel. As Glenn battled through the rain, the bad weather stopped, and he spotted an old petrol station that he had never seen before. The station had 1950s petrol pumps and old cars from the same era outside. Glenn then looked about some more and noticed some caravans that looked to be from the 1970s, with vehicles parked close to them that also appeared to be from the 1960s and 1970s, all in perfect condition, like they had just driven off a production line. Continuing along the gravel road, it appeared never to end, and Glenn was considering turning back as nothing seemed to look familiar. He took the next exit in the hope of seeing something he recognized, but sure enough, all he could see was more dirt road and more old caravans. Glenn's patience had run out, and so he spanned the vehicle round and began heading back to the petrol station. During his diversion back, he also spotted an old Coca-Cola machine which issued only glass bottles, no cans or plastic bottles, just the glass bottle version of the fizzy drink, which seemed odd, as the glass option was discontinued in 1994. Glenn became spooked by there being no people around and continued driving past an array of aged vehicles and homes that looked to be from the 1970s. It was safe to say that Glenn was royally lost and frantically started taking different dirt roads in a bid to find his way of the complex network of never-ending mystery dirt roads. He pulled over to the side of the road to work out his bearings, and after a short break, continued on to find his way out of this maze. In the distance, Glenn could see the dirt road coming to an end and transitioning into a paved road. This boosted his morale and headed towards the newer road, when the lighting and bad weather rapidly picked up again. As he reached the paved road, he looked back in his rearview mirror, and the caravans he could previously see had disappeared. Eventually, Glenn found Highway 81 and successfully made it home, still baffled as to where he had been. A week later, Glenn couldn't shake this event from his mind, and with improved weather, decided to head back down Empire Road to revisit the old petrol station and other aspects of the generational gap he had previously encountered. To his astonishment, there were no dirt roads, and no signs of what he had witnessed. He did, however, find a field with an old concrete standing that looked like it could have once housed a petrol station. Being more confused than ever, Glenn decided to ask around about when the road was paved, and it would transpire that it was in the 1980s. With reference to the petrol station, a long-term local resident told John that there was one some time ago, but it ceased business in 1981 and was torn down in 1987. Given the nature of this event, is it possible Glenn slipped in time? And at number 1, this story involves a man named William John Morris from Pontyclun in South Wales, who was a lorry driver for the RAF St. Athan in the Vale of Glamorgan in the late 1970s. William's job involved long hours of motoring and would often have to take a reservation at a bed breakfast overnight. One summer, William was driving approximately 80 miles away from his base to Cheltenham. He arrived late in the day after his 90-minute or so commute and spotted a bed and breakfast which looked rather pleasing on the eye. William parked up his lorry and decided to see if the charming place had any vacant rooms for the evening. He walked onto the extensive grounds, then to the rear of the property, and knocked on the door. An elderly lady sporting gardening gear answered the door, and William asked her if she had a spare room for the night, to which she advised she did, and escorted William to a large bedroom. The room contained a large single bed, a lavish bath with legs, and everything he needed for the evening. William asked the lady how much the room would be, and she insisted they could discuss it in the morning once he had rested, so he went to his lorry to collect some things and returned to the property. As he settled into his room, he noticed that all the furniture and pipework was from the 1940s, and located a pile of old comic books in one corner also dated from the 1940s. We are talking about comics such as The Beano or Dandy. William was tired and ready for bed, so he closed the curtains and laid down to catch some Zeds. When he awoke the following morning, the sun was shining, but the curtains were open, which he distinctively remembered closing before he went to bed. Once dressed and packed up, William left his room and called out for the elderly lady to pay his debt, but was nobody there. As he wandered round trying to find her, he noticed that all the furniture was covered in sheets, like either nobody had lived there for some time or was getting ready for a murder scene. As he entered the kitchen, it became obvious that it had not been used for many years and was saturated in thick dust. Suspicious as to where he was and what was going on, William left £3 inside the property and bolted to his lorry. He then sped away into the distance. Unsure what had just happened, William kept the story to himself until a few weeks later when he was detailed to head back into that direction again with a couple of colleagues. So he decided to share his creepy story with them and take them to the bed and breakfast. As the men reached the destination, William became further confused to find that it was a modern housing estate. Puzzled by this, William asked a local newsagent about the estate and if he knew where the bed and breakfast was. The man responded by advising that the area was bombed during World War II and there was no bed and breakfast. Are you convinced by story? If you like things weird and spooky, please subscribe and hope to see you again soon.